Okay, so let's continue on here. Example 14. Let's throw in a bit of geometry now with this, okay? I would be doing the same thing in my algebra class. We're talking basic perimeter and area. So we got ourselves a square. What's one of the things we note about a square? All sides are the same, and all those tick marks as I just drew out, that means all sides are the same, and all the angles are what? Right angles, okay? So we got ourselves a square, and it tells me the side length of a square is 10 root 2. So that tells me if one side's 10 root 2, how many sides I have 10 root 2? 4 of those, okay? All right, so now with that in mind, let's talk again about perimeter. Just as a reminder here, as I'm going back to my sticky, to just remember that perimeter, we add up all sides. Now in this case, for the square, all sides are the same, so it's going to be 4 times one side. And here, get that sticky out of the way. Out of the way. It's not moving out of the way for me. Let me zoom out for a second. Sorry about that. There we go. Okay. For that perimeter, I could go and say, hey, I've got 10 root 2 plus 10 root 2 plus 10 root 2 plus another 10 root 2. Or because it's a square, how many sides of those I have? 4 sides times 10 root 2. Does the same thing. It brings our multiplication back in from yesterday, or does our addition as well. 10 root 2 plus 10 root 2 plus 10 root 2 plus 10 root 2, that is 40. And right now, I'm going to have somebody probably put like 8, square root of 8. It's not. Remember, 4 times 10 is 40. That root 2, it's going to not get multiplied by the 4. It's not underneath, that 4 is not underneath the radical. It's, again, saying you have 10 root 2's here, you have another 10 root 2's here. It's all like terms, all of them still turn out to be root 2. The units, we don't have any units, so we just say generic units. Area, area of a square. Now, anytime I talked about area of a square, I have a lot of people that say length times width, which is fine, but a square is something special. What do we know about the sides of a square? It's the same, length times length. Let's go back and use your algebra skills. If you have a variable times itself, L times L, X times X, that means squared, L squared. So what I want you to think about the side of a square is its side squared. Now you're going to see people say L squared, you'll see people say L for obviously length, or you could say S for side. I probably will fall into S for side, but that's how I want you to think about the area of a square. So in this instance, when I go back up to that example, area of a square is the side squared. It just so happens the side turns out to be 10 root 2. Now, yesterday in our multiplying notes, if you don't put that in parentheses, and let's say you go to your calculator is only as good as the user. So your answer on your calculator is going to say 20, which is incorrect, okay? You want to square 10 root 2. To do that, what that means is multiply it by itself 2 times over. That, again, what it means to square it. So you're doing 10 times 10, and then you're also doing root 2 times root 2. If you're using your calculator to say check your work, you better use those parentheses and then square it. Okay, that every year I emphasize because I know people are going to make the mistakes. It's going to happen. I'll keep emphasizing it. So what do we get then? 100 and the square root of 4. 4 is perfect. What's the square root of 4? 2. And what's 100 times 2? 200. So the area of this square is 200 units squared. Okay. All right.